right. Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. That basically all sums up to I love Java. Um, I teach free courses at Test Automation University, including a Java programming course. So, core Java, if you know anyone who wants to get into programming and wants to learn about it, send them over to Test Automation University, free. Selenium WebDriver with Java, visual testing with Java, a couple of others as well. Now, while Java is still the leading programming language, it's gotten a bad rep over the years. And some of the biggest gripes that I've heard are things like Java is too verbose, meaning we have to write like a lot of code to do the most basic things. I've heard that the language was not evolving fast enough, right? So the releases of Java 7, Java 8, Java 9, all of these were 3 years apart, which is almost a lifetime, right? In software development timetables. The powers that be, they've heard us loud and clear, and Java has gotten a much needed makeover. So now new versions of the language are being released every 6 months, which is a lot to keep up with. The latest release of Java is Java 15, and we're slated to get Java 16 like next week or something like that. This month for sure. I think it's next week. But as you said, many developers are still using Java 8. And with so many new features coming around, it's hard to keep up. It's hard for me to keep up, and it's my job to keep up with it. So I know it's hard for others as well. So what I want to do in this talk is demonstrate some of the newer features of Java. I picked out like my favorite ones, so it's not everything else will be here. This would be like a workshop versus a meetup. But I'm going to go over like some of my favorite ones and how you can take advantage of them. All right. So we're going to look at some test code for verifying this banking page. And the specific test that we'll go over today is just going to make sure that all of the accounts are listed. So here's our test code, and I'm going to walk you through this. Here we're logging into the application. We get a handle to this accounts overview page. And this is where that table of accounts is located. And then next we get a list of the account numbers that are displayed on that page. And then we want to get the expected accounts. So this test data can change. So we're actually making a call to an API to get the expected accounts. And then this returns a list of deserialized account objects. So we want to make a new list, which will only contain the account numbers as strings, as opposed to the entire account. We'll loop through the list of account objects, and we're going to add the account number from each account into our list of expected accounts. And then finally, we'll compare both of the lists to make sure that every account for this customer is actually shown on the site. All right. So this test was written in Java 8, if you didn't guess that already. And what I want to do is go through this and see how we can modernize it using some of the latest features in Java. All right. Cool. So we're going to start here with the declaration of the accounts overview page. And as you can see, we're following Java conventions, right? We're using good names for both our class and our object. However, many times, as we see here, these two names end up being the exact same thing. This is redundant. This makes for a lot of typing. This is what the people are talking about when they talk about the verbosity of the language. So in Java 10, type inference for local variables was introduced. And what this means is that instead of explicitly declaring the object or the variable's type, we can instead use this keyword var. And Java will infer what the type is based on what's being assigned to it. Now, this is probably my favorite new feature in Java. It seems like really small. I have a lot of JavaScript friends, and they just don't get it when I talk about how cool this is. It seems really small, but it's a very, very nice addition to the language, right? Um, we always have these long class names in Java. We no longer need to type all of that out. Now, before you get carried away and you start using var everywhere, let me explain the rules and also give you some tips. Now, this does not make Java a dynamically typed language like JavaScript or Python, right? The type is still there. It's just inferred from the right-hand side of the statement. And what this means is you can only use var if you're actually initializing the variable, right? Otherwise, Java is not going to be able to infer what the type is. Also, it only works for local variables. So you can use this inside of methods, inside of loops, in decision structures, but you can't use this for global variables, even if you are initializing them, okay? Now, while the local variable type inference can be used within the body of local constructs, it cannot be used in headers of like methods or constructors. This is because whoever's calling you needs to know the data type of the argument that they need to send, okay? So those are the rules. Now let's get into some guidelines. Now, given this variable name and this method name, I have no idea what the inferred data type of X would be, right? You couldn't guess if I offered to pay you money, right? Now, sure, Java will know because Java can see the signature of get X and, can easily determine what's the return type here. But for us, just this single line of code is not enough. So this makes it a little bit difficult to work with this variable. Now, we should always be using good variable names, I know, but it's even more important if you're going to use var, okay? Once you start using this, again, you're going to love it, but don't overdo it. Using var here, this doesn't do you any favors at all, right? Just type in. Int's 3 letters, var is 3 letters. Don't just be mysterious for the sake of being mysterious, okay? All right. Now, I've updated our test method to use var. So let me show you more of what I meant about how that name comes into play. All right. So I'm using var here in the inferred type, very clear to me as the reader because of the variable name that I chose. So that's good to go. Here, though, I changed the variable name. It was actual accounts, which felt like a really good name at the time, but that was because I had that context there. I had the type there right in front of it. With removing that, I lose a little bit of context, right? So I actually renamed this variable to actual account IDs list. So it's very clear. This is a list. It's holding the account IDs. Okay. For this one, I also changed the name from accounts to accounts list. So that is clear. List, holding account objects. Here, I changed the name to be more representative, and I also explicitly define the data type of the array list on the right-hand side of this statement. Now, if I didn't use this diamond operator to indicate that this is a list of strings, it would be inferred as a list of objects, which is okay in this case, but it could get you into some trouble down the road, right? For example, if I needed to access any of the elements of that list and I wanted to use the dot operator and I'm expecting to have access to methods from the string class, I would not have that because it's inferred as an object unless I explicitly declared that. All right. Okay. And then here I'm using var inside of a for loop just to kind of show you that it can be done. All right. So let's see what else we can modernize. How about let's go inside of this get accounts method. Now remember, this is the table and we're getting all of those values in the first column that's labeled account. And here's the code to do that. So we see here, it finds all of the account sales. And these are web element objects. And then it creates a new list to hold just the text of the web elements. So this is a list of strings. And then to populate that list, we loop through each of the elements from line 3 and we get their text. We add them to the new list from line 6. Notice this method needs 2 lists and a loop. Of course, there's a more modern approach to do this in Java by using functional programming style. Now, this approach was actually added in Java 8. I don't see it used much in test code, so I'm just going to touch on it a little bit. Bear with me for those who are already actively using it. But as you can see here, this is much more streamlined. Here we still call find elements to get the list of web elements, but we don't need to store them. Instead, we turn them into a stream from which we can do some cool functional programming. So this map function will take those web elements, map them into whatever is passed into this. So here we're saying get the text from these web elements and then store them into a list, which we return. Okay. Now here's an alternative way to write the map call. Notice in the top example, line 5 uses a shortcut or a syntactic sugar, but in the bottom example, line 3 uses the fully spelled out approach. Okay. Now we can do the same in our test method. So instead of using a to list in a for loop, I changed that to use a stream and a map, map just what I need into this single list. All right. Now, it's a good practice to break up these chained method calls where each method call is on a new line. It's really tempting to do this big, powerful call all on one line. I know, I do it myself because it's like, wow, look at this wicked one-liner, right? Before I check that thing in, I go ahead and break it up because that makes it easier to read your code, right? And to process what's going on. So good practice, break up those calls, make sure that each one is on a new line. Also helps with debugging. So some of the IDEs will allow you to put breakpoints on these subcalls, these chain calls, all right? All right, let's look at what's new beyond Java 8 with streams. So Java 9 introduces a couple of new methods to stream, one being take while. Now, let's say that I have this code which gets the list of accounts, and then it uses the take while method on this stream of accounts. Within this take while method, you pass in a condition, also known as a predicate. And this is saying, go through this list of accounts and accept all of the ones that have a type of checking until you get to one that does not have this type, okay? So here are all the accounts stored in accounts list. Notice there are 11 of them here, right? And when we say take while type is checking, we end up with a list of 3 accounts. And as you can see, it's the first 3 accounts from the accounts list. When it got to that 4th account, the type was savings. So that's it. The stream ends. Okay. All right. Java 9 also introduced drop while, which does the opposite of take while. So for this one, we're saying drop the accounts of type checking until you get to one that's not. All right. So with the 11 counts here, we see that the first 3 are checking, the 4th is savings, the 5th through 9 are checking, the 10th one is savings, the last one is checking. Pop quiz. How many accounts do you think will be collected here in checking accounts list? Go ahead and type in the chat. me see if I can find my chat window. Oh, look at y'all cheering for me. Y'all are so kind. 8, okay. Someone else says 8, 7, 2, a lot of 8s, a 9, a 1, 11 minus first 3 equals 8, 8, 8, 1. Okay, 2, 8. Okay, 7. Okay, very good, very good. All right, let's see who's right. Drum roll and all that jazz, right? Okay, so if you said 8, round of applause, you're correct. So this method dropped the first 3 accounts because they matched the predicate, and then it stopped the string, right? So all other accounts are collected and stored into the list. Very good. All right. Now, all those accounts couldn't fit on the last page. So here are all of them. This is the full list of drop while account type is checking. Excellent. All right. So you might be thinking, why on earth would I want to use take while and drop while, right? The examples I showed you, they were a bit of a brain tease because the lists weren't sorted. So the results were indeterministic. However, if you sort the collection first, as we're doing here, it makes a lot more sense. And notice I'm using this comparator to specify which property I want this object sorted by, okay? So then, given the sorted list, we see it collects all of the checking accounts, and this actually makes more sense, right? Likewise for drop while, okay? So a common question I get is, what's the difference between like take while and filter? Because, you know, both of these use a predicate to narrow a string. The difference is the filter operation looks through the entire collection and it gathers all of the elements that match the predicate. Whereas the take while short circuits this process by stopping the operation once it encounters an element that doesn't match that predicate. So that makes take while faster, okay? All right, let's see what else we can modernize. Let's look inside of this get customer ID method. And let me make sure I don't have any questions before I move on, because I did save time for you all. Okay, let's see. Okay, we're doing good. Great. If you have questions, okay, here's one. Shouldn't sorted plus take while still be as slow as filter? Good question, right? Will the sorting not eliminate the performance gain? Both of you asked the same question. Very good. I think it's still a tad faster. We would have to like run some tests in order to be able to see like the total thing with the sort, if that basically diminishes any gains we had from that. But the take while by itself, like if you didn't care to have a sorted list and you just wanted to process some data until some certain predicate, this one by far is faster. When you add the sorting part in, that might either make them equal, it could be still a little fat, it could be slower, I don't know. I haven't run that test. So somebody, that's your homework, run that test and let us know. I'm curious now. All right, good question. All right, so we're gonna go inside of this get customer ID method. So this method is holding our test data, and based on the name of the account, it's returning the account ID. So this is using switch statements. And notice we have to declare the variable, and then we specify that each case we want to handle. And inside of these cases, we assign the value to ID, and then we must follow that assignment by a break statement, right? To prevent follow through into the next case. How many of you have had the omission of a break statement bite you? I feel your pain, right? So not only is this a lot of boilerplate code, it's also risky because you have to remember to add that break statement. If you forget one of this, one of these break statements, this is going to return the wrong ID. All right. In Java 12, switch expressions were introduced. So now you can use switch to directly assign a value to a variable. So notice here, we're using switch on the right side of the statement to initialize this variable. The case statement doesn't need a colon in the switch expressions, but instead it uses an arrow. And this is saying if the name is John, then assign 12212 to the variable ID. All right. Notice I don't need the break statement. There is no fall through in switch expressions. And I can even simplify this a bit more by removing the assignment here and just returning the result of the switch expression. All right. Now, using the lambda style arrows is one way to assign a value, but you can also use another approach. You can use the colon that we're used to, but you'll need to follow this with the word yield. Now, this is a bit more verbose, so I definitely prefer to use the arrow. Okay. You can also specify more than one case. So notice here, we're saying if the customer name is John or Demo, which is his last name, then the ID is 12212. Okay. This makes up for the removal of fall through from switch expressions because now you can indicate all of the cases delimited by a comma. All right. You can also do more than just assign values. For example, here we're using the lambda style arrow followed by a set of curly braces to indicate we want to do some more programming here. So inside of the body of this case, we can add more statements like this one. But that very last line, that must yield a value to be returned. Okay, so this is where that whole yield thing comes in handy. Let's talk about the rules for switch expressions. You'll need to use the arrows or the colon yield. You can't like mix and match these at the same time, right? So line 3 would give you a compilation error because it's a different kind of case than what was specified in line 2. Now you can use the yield with the arrows, but only in events like what I just showed you where you're using the curly braces to execute multiple statements within a case, all right? You can use any of the cases to throw an exception. So of course, in this case, the default case, no value is being returned for ID. The entire flow is interrupted by the execution. Also, I'm showing it in the default case, but you can throw an exception from any of these cases. You can throw an exception from multiple cases. So if I wanted, for case John, maybe I wanted to throw account closed exception or something like that, I can do that and still have the default one as well. Okay. This is not a replacement of the switch statement, right? This is an addition to the language. So this means you can still use switch statements, and in some cases, it's probably the more favorable option. As a rule of thumb, I use switch expressions when I just need to assign a value. I'm using switch to assign some value, right? And I use the statements when I'm not assigning a value, but just to invoke some statements, all right? Okay. Any questions on switch so far? I have a hard time getting back to this chat window. Let me see. Okay, here we go. I should just leave it open. All right. Could I also return switch name, case John, arrow, and then something? Yeah, I think that's what I might have answered before you asked it, right? So you don't have to assign it to the value. You can just do directly return that value as part of the method. Yeah. Okay, I'm curious whether Java directly borrowed this syntax from Kotlin. Looks nearly identical. I don't know. Every time I talk about Java, someone says, "Oh, looks like y'all catching up to Kotlin." So probably, I don't know. But that's a good thing. We should just use Kotlin. Dave, if we all could throw away our entire code base and start over, we probably would. But we can't always. So we go with what we got. Uh-oh, language wars. They always want to fight me, those Kotlin folks, I tell you. All right, so back to Java, my boo. Oh my goodness, so we have Scala in the building. I'm saying the word Kotlin. Kotlin. All right, let's move on. Let me see if I can change your mind. All right, so back to our test method. Let's go inside of this get accounts method, which is an API call. All right, so this method is making a get call to get all of the accounts for a specified customer. And it's then deserializing the response into an array of account objects. So let's look at the API response for this call. Now notice here, we have an array of these account objects, and each account has an ID, customer ID, type, and balance, right? So I have this Pojo class that has nothing but these fields, as well as getters and setters. For many of you who have created Pojos, which are plain old Java objects, meaning they just contain some fields and some getters and setters, you know that this is tedious to do, right? Many of us have resorted to using external libraries like Lombok to handle this, so we don't have to write all of this code. Good news for you. In Java 14, a new construct was introduced called records. This is a record, much, much shorter, right? Notice here, instead of using the word class, we use the word record. Also, as opposed to opening this with a curly brace, we use parentheses, and inside of there, we declare the fields. So you specify the fields in their data types in this comma delimited list, and then you close it with a closing paren and a set of curly braces. That's it. You don't need to make any getters. You don't need to make any setters. You don't need to override the inherited methods like equals and hash code or toString. All of it is just done for you. You define what fields you want and you're done. You're done. However, if you just want to override anything, you can. Or if you want to add something new, you can. You can do this inside of those curly braces, okay? So right there, I've overwritten toString just to show you that I can do so. Now, records, they can be instantiated just like classes. So account is the name of our record. We use the new keyword. We call the constructor. We pass in all of the values, okay? The fields of a record are final, however. So there are no set methods generated for records. Of course, you can add a setter within the curly braces of the record, but I don't see a good reason to do that since, again, the fields are final, so you can't modify these anyway, right? You do have accessor methods. However, they don't start with the word gets like we're used to. Instead, the accessor method name is the same as the field name. So notice here, we just say account.balance as opposed to account.getBalance, all right? Since records are final, they cannot inherit from other classes nor other records. Attempting to use the extends clause in a record declaration is going to result in a compilation error. Records can, however, implement interfaces, okay? Just like classes, records uses the implements keyword in their declaration to specify their intent. And the methods can be implemented within the record's curly braces. For example, here we have this account interface, and then we have the account record, and then we say implements account interface. Okay, so that's how you would do that. Cool. Records were released as a preview feature in Java 14, which was March 2020. So we've had a year to play around with this feature, offer any feedback. And Java 16, which releases this month, not next month, this month. I think March 16th is the date. Records will become an official feature of the language. So I'm gonna wait. Join me on March 16th in celebrating records in the language. All right. Okay, let's see if I can get back to my chat. Yeah, I thought I saw it buzzing. All right, let's see what the people saying. Okay, about damn time. Okay. Nice. Immutable by default. Fantastic. Yay for immutability. Java 16 on March 16th. Yes. Okay. Definitely going to adopt everything I learned today. Wonderful. It's like a dream to get rid of the get prefix. Really? Interesting. All right. Very good. I'm very glad to see you all are as happy about records as I am. All right. So next I want to show you text blocks. So we'll continue on with the API. And what if instead of calling the API, we instead just wanted to, mock the data right there in the API util class? To represent this whole thing as a string, look at this, is tedious, right? We need to escape all of the fields because they're already in quotation marks. We need to add new line characters for each line break. We need to add plus signs for each line. It's ugly. It's ugly to read. It's ugly to write. Everybody hates it, right? Text blocks. Look how beautiful. These will allow you to use 3 quotation marks to open and close a big block of text. Notice you don't have to escape anything, right? The individual quotation marks, they're still there on the fields. The line breaks are respected. It's gorgeous. Text blocks were introduced in Java 13 as a preview feature. We got a second preview in Java 14, and I'm happy to announce that they became a permanent feature in the latest release of Java, which is Java 15, and that came out in September. So yay, let's welcome text blocks to the family. All right, so let's look at some rules and some guidelines. You cannot include the entire text block on the same line, or you're going to get a compilation error. Now, I'm using these little short phrases just because I needed to fit it all on one slide. But of course, I wouldn't use a text block for 2 words like this, right? It's mostly used for big blocks of text. All right. A new line must be added after the opening quotes, like in this second example here. Now, this is legal, but it looks a little goofy, right? So this is not the preferred way. The preferred way is have some balance, have both the opening and the closing quotes aligned, okay? One more thing I want to show you. Well, let's see if y'all had any questions. I doubt it. I bet it's just a celebration, right? It should be a celebration. No way. I've been dreaming of text blocks for years. I know. Kind of bum I can't use these features. Oh, still teaching Java 11 in the university. Oh. Well, Java 11 is technically the LTS, so that's the long-term support language. So your university is doing right by teaching you that. Java 17, which comes out in September, that is the next LTS. So hopefully your professors are preparing to move to that language then. All right. Yep. I know. All right, cool. All right, let's see what else. So another thing in the API class, let's say that we didn't want the entire response, but we wanted to just return like a hard-coded list of account IDs. The old way to do this would be to use this arrays.asList method. However, in Java 9, this of method was introduced for all entities in the collection framework. So lists, maps, sets, etc. Right? This one seems small, but I've actually been enjoying it a lot. And I think the reason for that is it's just more natural. Before, it took a little bit of cognitive effort for me to recall which class do I use to make a quick list. Like, is it array? Is it arrays, plural? And I would always have to think about it, right? But now I want a list, I say list.of. I want a map, I call map.of. Nice and straightforward. And speaking of maps, populating these required separate method calls for each item that we wanted to add to the collection. Now, y'all sit down. Now you can define a map all in one line of code. So the parameters are key followed by value. And as you can see here, we have 3 entries all on one line. Now, this is me showing off, and I like a good one-liner when I can get away with it. In real life production code, I would break this up into separate lines just so that it's more readable. But I want to show y'all that you can do it. Do it one time just so you can feel good about it, all right? But don't check it in. One more thing to note about using the of method is that it creates collections which are immutable, okay? So this means that the collection cannot be changed by adding, by removing, by sorting it. You can't do any of that later after it's created. So only use this when your collection doesn't require any changes later on in the program, all right? All right, so that's it. Those are my favorite new features from recent versions of Java. I've been using them in a couple of different projects. I find them very useful, even in my test code. All right, so let's see. I see the chat buzzing. What questions can I answer? Okay, let's see. Oh, y'all are talking. Okay, good. All right, beware the IDEs of March in this off by 1 error. I don't know what that means. What's the IDEs?
Sorry, it wasn't funny. Don't worry about
was it a joke? Okay. All right, I guess I had to be there at the moment. Okay. I prefer the idea. Okay, y'all still talking about IntelliJ? I love IntelliJ. IntelliJ does a really great job of including support for these new features, even when they're in preview. So I really love that. I do like this one. Which one? Was that the of one? Having to remember call a static method on arrays. I know it did feel weird. It always felt a little weird. So yes, yay for immutability. Does the map.of option carry a performance cost? I don't think so. Not that I know of. Don't quote me on that. As you can tell, I don't do like a lot of performance benchmarks, which is probably bad. But if anyone knows, feel free to chime in. The question again was, does the map.of option carry a performance cost? I do wish they characterize the pairs in some way. Beth, I feel like the IDEs give that support. So if I'm not mistaken, like IntelliJ will write the little kind of label next to each one of those in the map entry. So it'll say like key and value to kind of label those. So that helps a bit. Does map.of have any limit? Yes, it does have a limit. You're saying you think 10? It might be 10. I can't remember the exact number, but 10 sounds about right. It's something like that. It's not a big number. It's something like that. Okay. IDs of March, not IDEs of March. Okay, got it. All right. Okay, good. Any hope for people stuck on Java 8 at work? I need to know more about the folks who are stuck on Java 8. Like what are the restraints there? Like, it's easy for me. outside looking in to be like, oh, just upgrade. But of course, I know, there's a lot of considerations that goes into that. Anybody care to share what's holding you on Java 8? Can people talk? I'm not down there yet to read this stuff. Can they get on the mic?
I'll jump in with an audio question. I haven't been using Java at work in a while, but I remember a bunch of hullabaloo about new Oracle licensing rules when Java's versions were starting to advance on an annual basis.
Of course,
so at least one company I used to work for just stayed on Java 8 because of licensing concerns.
Yeah.
That.
Silly me. Yep, you're exactly right. I think that's a big factor in it, and it's all really confusing to a lot of people. There is a OpenJDK, which is the open source version of it. If you're going to stay with Oracle's version, then yes, beyond Java 8, there are some licensing things you should be aware of if you're going to ship any of the stuff that you've written in this language. A lot of folks are moving to things like OpenJDK, which does not have those same restrictions. So definitely something to look into. Tell management that Java 8 is end of life and contains security holes. Agreed on optimizations. My question was because Kotlin, I just had to throw Kotlin in there. This is Marcus. I'm teasing you, Marcus. Because Kotlin explicitly warns of really poor performance on its map shortcut. Wanted to give Java a chance to shine. Oh, look at you. And see, I was picking on you. Look at me. I'm bad, Angie.
Sharing the love here.
Okay. We use a process automation system that uses Java 8 for its coding at my job. How would I approach delivering a Java 8 15/16 app that contains the JDK, so I'm not dependent on the Java version being already installed? Should be doable. Okay, first of all, don't do that. So all of these in-between features, in-between versions, I wouldn't recommend like you start writing production code with them. Use the LTS version, right? So Java 8 was one, Java 11 is one, Java 17 is the next one, which is September. So if you were to deliver like a brand new app and you wanted to try one of these newer versions out, I would develop that in Java 11, not like 15/16. 15/16 to me is like, oh, was 14? I don't think Java 14 was LTS. Let me see. Pretty sure not. No. Right, no, so it's not one. So Java 11 is the latest one, okay?
Okay, maybe let me explain a little bit of the background.
Sure, who's just talking? I can't see.
It's Samuel.
Hey!
Hi, Angie, so good to see you.
You too.
The background is that I am often doing small applications or something to help me at the customer. So it's not really a production code. So my question was, because a lot of clients I work with have some reservations against Java, and they all want to always have their .NET and stuff. But I'm a Java fan, so I wonder, is there a good way to just say, hey, this is my app, it contains the JRE that needs to be done, and just not require them to install anything, because I'm the one who delivers the app and wants to use the app, so please just let me do this.
Right. Any advice for Pese? Yeah, I think if you explain, like they don't have to do anything, right? They don't have to install anything. They don't have to manage anything. Is it like a high security type of situation or something?
No.
Yeah, it's like leave you alone, let you do your job, right?
Yes, exactly.
Many months ago, we used to bundle a Jerry. I feel like that's a bad solution. Hey, Mark. Yeah, yeah. I think you should pitch them just like you said it. Like, you don't have to do anything behind the scenes. In the way I develop it should be okay. All right. Someone has a question. How do I go about creating a custom Jerry using Java module system from Java 9? I don't know. Anyone knows this? We don't know Emmanuel. I'm sorry. If you're on Twitter, ask me on Twitter. I'll retweet it, and I have a bunch of like Java folks who can jump in. Zeb is saying J-Link, I think it's called. I don't know. I don't know about this. Yeah, I don't know. Any other questions? All right.
The follow-up would be: Did you ever play around with Graal? Because that would, I think, achieve that. Graal VM. So you have yes, Graal VM. So you have a compiled version just to deliver.
Thank you.
Is this something you played around with already, or not?
Me?
Yeah.
No. Mm-mm.
I actually have a question, Zeb here. I have a question about the immutable lists and maps and stuff like that. Is there some kind of special property to them, like they don't have an add method or they don't have a put method?
They
Or
have the
some kind
method.
of way to guarantee that?
No, so you still have access to them. So if you did like a .add, technically, it'll allow you. But then when you try to run it, you'll get a runtime exception that's basically saying it's an unsupported operation on that collection.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Sure. I saw like a really interesting discussion the other day where someone kind of asked like why wasn't it designed to be like a different type of class, like immutable map or something like that it returns or whatever. And it was this really fascinating article that went through like all of the design considerations and how difficult it was, and someone even branched off and tried to like implement the collections library in that way and ended up just basically down a rabbit hole and saying it was too much. And they kind of gave up the ghost on it. So
it's something that I would want to use but not want to program myself.
Exactly. Yep. All right. So for how to sell this is from Beth. I think you have to make the case in terms of business value. You can tie it to other measurable improvements like test coverage or time to bug fix or something that you are already going to do, right? It doesn't just happen. Yeah, it's a big undertaking. There's another Java champion named Trisha G. And Trisha, she has talks, blog posts, all this stuff around migrating from Java 8. I definitely encourage you to Google that. It's, let me see if I can type it in the chat. Google her and just put like Java migration or Java 8 migration. And she has a lot of content to help you understand like what's involved in it, any roadblocks you may hit. I think she may even have like some good justifications that you can bring back to the team to help with your argument. Yep. Cool. All right. So if there are no more questions, I'll let you all go. This was fun. Thank you so much for having me. If you think of anything later, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. My handle is here on the slide, techgirl1908. All right. And good luck on your exam. Everybody tell Jovian good luck on her exam. She's a student learning Java, and she saw that I was going to do this. And so she came to maybe see if it'll all click for her test.
Angie, thank you. That was
Yeah.
fantastic. I'll put you on the spot with
Sure.
one more question, which is, do you
Okay.
have anything else going on you'd like to plug? Books, talks, inventions? And you seem like one of the people that I follow with the most going on. So if you have anything else
We
you want
got
to
a lot
share, please
going
do.
on. So much so that I take it day by day, so I don't even know like what's going on tomorrow. But I will plug my Java courses. All of them are free. This is my way of giving back to the community. Again, core Java course, Test Automation University. So if you know anybody who wants to learn it, I send students like Jovian to the course when they're struggling in lecture. I have other professors that send them there as well, because I break it all the way down. So it's really easy to grasp. Send people there. I have other courses if you want to learn more about like testing, unit testing, web testing, API testing, all the things. I have those available as well. Okay. If you want to learn some other languages, we have that too. So Mark, who's in the chat, Mark works at Google, and he was kind enough to develop a JavaScript course for Test Automation University. So if you're a Java person who wants to, learn JavaScript for whatever reason you might want to, that is available for free. Everything is for free.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for
Somebody
giving
hit him
us
with
your
the
time.
list. Let me see. Test
That was
Automation.
wonderful. Yeah, you know what I'll do? I'll put the video of this on the meetup event, and it would be great if you could add links on that as well. That people will find that just
Sure.
fine. It's fantastic. Thank you so
All right.
much. This was awesome.
Great.
So everyone else,
Thanks for
stay
having
tuned.
me.
Yes, it was our pleasure. Stay tuned for the video. I'll post it in the next day or so, and Angie will post links like she posted in the chat for how you can follow up and learn lots more and keep up with her. Thanks all for coming, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks very much.